Brother, today we are joined together to discuss the glorious, edgy Konrad Curze.
And also featuring the Night Lords.
Featuring the Night Lords, and also the Night Haunter.
Yes.
Who is a different person than Konrad Curze, don't forget.
Is he?
Maybe.
I read the book, that's not a thing that's made clear.
Okay, so we're jumping right into this shit, huh? Okay,
Yeah.
so...
Wait, no, before we get started, I feel like we should do this as a preamble now.
Okay, go ahead.
GW, in their infinite wisdom, has decided to take all the free advertising that's on the internet of people making stuff purely because they like it, and they kidnapped all the people who would work for them and put all their work behind a paywall, and have brought a horrible, terrible, painful death to everyone else, including one of the greatest and most easy ways to get into the Warhammer lore, TTS. I got into Warhammer because of TTS.
Yeah, it definitely helped me in
Yeah.
deciding that I loved the hobby as much as I did.
Yeah. It's legally they can do this, morally they shouldn't be doing it.
And that's the tail end of it all. I mean, it is, at the end of the day, it's their property. They can do what they want with it. But
we,
at the same time,
as fans, have the legal right to hate it.
Yeah, and I mean, as of this podcast recording, nothing has changed on GW's standpoint on the use of their IP. But, I mean, the financial impact it's having, I mean, I have spoken to Anisius previous, and we've discussed the fact that GW stock is dropping significantly. It's dropped like 7% as of the between announcement and of the recording of this podcast, which is a significant profit loss.
Yes, but GW has a history of kind of being stubborn about this sort of thing. So it's going to take a very significant thing, and I think that is definitely going to happen, because if you take this incredibly niche thing and you put all fan knowledge of it behind a paywall, that is an easy way to go the way of the dinosaurs.
Yes, I mean, if you look at like Star Wars, there have been fan movies made of Star Wars, and Disney has not co-signed them, but I mean,
Disney isn't actively striking them from the earth.
Correct. There's more understanding in the development of these fan projects, and I mean, even if they weren't monetizing from them, Disney, I think Disney put the kibosh on any monetization resulting from the fan projects, but they're still allowing them to be made, which is in turn helping everybody. It's helping Star Wars communities. It's helping these content creators. What GW is doing is not helpful to anybody but themselves.
And even that's not going to last for very long.
Yeah. I mean, the whole reason this is all going on is because of the Warhammer Plus.
Yeah.
GW is, for those of you who don't know, GW is launching their own kind of platform for all kind of
they want Netflix.
Movies.
They want Netflix, but exclusively for their niche hobby.
Correct. Which
I'm a fan of. I like Warhammer, but at the same time, I know it's hard to get people into Warhammer. TTS helped a great deal.
Right.
TTS, like, I would show people TTS or just TTS or Astartes.
Yeah, I mean, Astartes was a good one because Astartes was just so fucking amazing.
Yeah, and then GW decided to poach Astartes and intimidate TTS off of the platform.
Yeah. I mean, as of right now, the way TTS has been responding is that they are
on indefinite hiatus.
They are on indefinite hiatus on their own accord.
Yeah.
GW has not contacted them specifically and said you need to knock this off. But I mean, they are being
they're striking down people. It's not unreasonable to assume that if TTS were to do something that GW didn't like, that they would do the same.
Right, which is not great.
Yeah, the fandom stuff's gonna happen. We're waiting until they figure out a way to poach all of the Lorehammer YouTubers.
Yeah. So if we just if we start posting on a regular schedule, you know
Send
something's
help.
wrong.
Send help.
Send help, because we have been kidnapped by the GW legal team.
Yep. Anyway, moving on from real life, let's talk about the grimdark fiction.
Yes, where
the
real
Night
life
Lords
decisions don't make me cry. Yes, Konrad Curze.
And also the Night Lords.
And also the Night Lords.
I like how these videos like, we're going to talk about the whole Legion, and then we just talk about the Primarch for most of it.
They're the coolest aspect of the Legion.
That is true. They are the most Legioniest member of the Legion.
Correct, because the Legion is also just them.
Yes.
Smaller.
This is true.
Okay, so Konrad Curze is the 8th son of the Emperor.
Uh-huh.
He is also known as the Night Haunter.
Uh-huh.
He is the traitor. They eventually became a trade legion. He was the Primarch of the Night Lord Legion. He was also edgy, space, scary Batman.
Yes.
Where if you jaywalked, he would rip your skull out and your spinal cord.
Okay. Before we talk about that, let's talk about the planet he landed on.
Nostromo.
Yes.
It was space Russia.
Yes.
And everything was in the
mining,
Gulag.
Complete with just it was grim Russian mining town, the planet.
Yes.
Where
Space
everyone
dark
was
Gulag.
poor. Everyone was poor, and allow me to read you the Lexicanum entry of it. The vast majority of the planet's population lived in abject poverty, toiling in the mines, while the rich grew in affluence, exploiting the already downtrodden workers. Crime ran mostly unchecked, depression was inescapable, and overpopulation was kept in check more by suicide than any other measure. I want you to imagine that. In a horrible, poverty-stricken world, people kill themselves more than they die of, like, various poverty-related deaths. Like,
I mean,
I don't
they
know,
don't
mine
see
crashes.
the sun.
That is true.
There is no sunlight in Nostromo.
That is true. They live inside. We should clarify this. They live inside Nostromo.
Yeah,
they don't live on the outside of Nostromo. They live in the core of the planet, which is mostly made up of adamantium, which is the stuff they make spaceships out of.
Yup.
Does that mean that if, like, because he probably was the first thing ever to bring light onto the planet, like external light, because his baby pod crashed through the planet.
Yep.
So he also had no parents, like most edgy vigilantes do.
Yeah. I mean, Bruce Wayne had his parents murdered in front of him. The Night Haunter got kidnapped by evil space entities from his parents.
Yes, and he just kind of was raised by himself.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So he crashes into this planet Nostromo and into, like, the planet's core, like, into the magma center of this planet, and he has to crawl his way out of the core of this fucking planet, like, inch by inch, just crawling with his hands, as a newborn baby. And he eventually makes his way up to the planet, to the proper planet, into the main city, which is Nostromo Quintus, I believe.
Yes.
And he has to kill, and, you know...
He has to kill things to survive.
It's kill or be killed on the streets of Nostromo, and he wasn't gonna die.
Also, it mentions feral animals in the vast city of Nostromo Quintus. What is running around, like giant rats?
Well, I mean, streets in New York, there are, like, rats, there are dogs,
but, like,
there are
40k rats, irradiated pigeons.
Yeah, exactly. Homeless people.
All of which must be killed for sustenance.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, because the Night Haunter had to straight up eat people.
Oh, yes.
And he
forgot
did.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he straight up just chomped on some dude's arm. Which was good for the fact that it gave him sustenance. It was bad because it made him more crazy.
I mean, absolutely it was.
So even at a young age, the Night Haunter saw visions of the future. Mm-hmm. Only it wasn't like we'll talk about Sanguinius and his abilities of, like, prophecy.
Okay.
It wasn't like that. The Night Haunter would literally only see, like, the most grim, dark interpretation of the future.
So he just had, like, psychic anxiety.
All the time.
Fourth dimensional anxiety. Just...
Yes.
I'm just like, look at this person at this bus stop, and then immediately he has a vision of that person at the bus stop, like, stabbing an old woman and then eating her.
And then blowing up.
Yes.
Because the planet is under attack by, like, fucking Tyranids or some shit.
And then his immediate response is, I will stab this person before he stabs this old woman. It is the only way.
Yes. So, specifically that. There's a section in, I believe, the Night Hunter book where he talks about this type of, like, vigilante justice he takes on as this Night Haunter, as this space Batman, where he, in order to fix Nostromo, he has to outlaw crime. Right. And I know that sounds really fucking stupid. Of course crime is outlawed. It's fucking crime. It's illegal to commit crimes. Well, no, because he would take the most brutal example of any kind of punishment. So if you committed murder, he would kill you. But, like, when that didn't fix crime, he continued to do things. So, like, okay, you didn't commit murder, but if you raped a woman, he would kill you. Okay, so that didn't fix crime. So, okay, the playground bully pushed the kid off the swing, the kid broke his arm, and then he'd murdered the bully.
Yes.
And then
because that bully would grow up to murder more people.
And then that wouldn't fix crime. So, okay, that person's about to commit suicide. He would kill that person because suicide's illegal.
Right.
That didn't fix crime.
Yes, this is Amazon planet.
Right.
We should mention that. This planet was, like, run by corrupt corporate executives.
CEO entrepreneur.
Yes. Exactly. So suicide was, in fact, a crime because it was considered to be removing theft of resources.
Right.
So and Konrad Curze, somehow having access to all of the laws on this, like a legal textbook fell down a storm drain like Ninja Turtles, and he found it, and so he memorized every single law, and anytime anyone was found even like a decimal point out of place from the law, he would kill them and then, like, turn their bodies into horrible meat tapestries and then display them from the highest building so as to ensure that no one would ever steal a stick of gum from a gas station again.
Right. Because they got their spinal cord ripped out and then wrapped around their neck, and they were hung to death by it.
Yes.
Because for some reason, they didn't die when the spinal cord was ripped out. They just stayed alive for a while.
Yes.
There's a scene, I believe Arch Warhammer talks about it in his analysis of Konrad Curze, where he's holding a man who is attempting suicide. He's holding him over, like, a building edge. And he looked into his eyes and saw a future where this man, you know, climbed down from that edge. Konrad Curze let him go, and this man would go on to lead a perfectly good life. He would raise kids, he would have a family, he would be a contributing member of society, he would never break another law. And then he saw a slight possibility that this man would go and run a lady over with a car. I'm making this up, but like this is the point he was trying to make.
Yeah.
He would run a lady over the car, hit and run, or he would murder a man because he thought he stole something from him. Well, Konrad Curze didn't drop this man off the building because even if there was a slight chance that this man would continue to break the law in the future, he could not take that risk.
Right. I have another one. I have one that's similar. That kind of shows that he's not, like, the fact that his powers weren't just anxiety. It wasn't just, like, I only see the worst future. It was that he saw multiple futures, but that he believed in the worst one, where he was chasing down this kid, right? And when he cornered this kid on, like, the roof of a building, he saw two futures. One future was where the kid surrenders, the Night Haunter lets him go, and this kid goes on to work with the Night Haunter to fix all of Nostromo's problems. In the other future, the kid tries to stab Konrad lets him go, and then that guy becomes the new head of the all the criminal organizations on Nostromo because he's the guy who survived the Night Haunter.
Yes.
Konrad, being a sane and rational individual, believes that the second future is the only real future, stabs the kid, and then finds out that the kid was going to surrender because he had thrown his knife off the building.
But he didn't give
He didn't care. He was just like, well, he could have become the Joker, and that would have been bad. Society.
That would have been real bad. Yeah, we live in
this society.
Yes.
There will be several of these jokes throughout this video.
Oh, God.
Kills your throat to hear.
Yeah, yep. I have space cancer now.
Okay. Alright.
So he would continue this terror campaign until he was essentially named the king of the planet.
Yes. And I like the Lexicanum mentions that apparently he didn't implement a curfew. It just kind of happened.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't give him any excuse to come.
Mothers would threaten children that if they continued to misbehave, the Night Haunter would come for them. And the Night Haunter probably did come for some children.
Most definitely.
He's like, I'm sorry, little Timmy, but you pushed that little girl on the swings. Now you must die. And then he turns him into a giant banner that says, "Don't steal, kids. Stealing is bad." Painted on like a full, folded out skin of a child.
Yup. Okay, we're just gonna stop talking about dead kids now.
It's GW, that's essential.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. After he was named the king of this planet, crime rate dropped to 0%.
Yeah.
And eventually the Emperor would come and be like, okay, this is interesting.
He's like, "Hello, my son. I have come to free you. Look at us, our shiny golden army. We have visited this place where literally everyone has night vision and nothing else. With our shiny golden armor and our giant space headlights that probably made some people blind."
No, they definitely made people blind, and that actually happened.
Oh, yes.
So, the Emperor does this cool thing where he just sometimes doesn't give a fuck.
Yes, I forgot.
So, we talk about before, like, the Emperor challenging Russ to all these competitions in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, being, like, he's appealing to his sons.
Yeah.
It's like acting in an
Russ
interesting way
or
towards
Vulcan.
Yeah, right. And then for some of his sons,
He just kind of shows up.
He sort of just shows up. And not in a good way. So the Emperor knew that nobody on this planet has ever seen the sun. So he decides to wear his brightest armor.
And have all of his dudes wear the brightest armor. And have Fulgrim bring his giant fancy, like, e-girl spotlights so as to engage in maximum blindness.
So literally dozens and hundreds of individuals were blinded by the arrival of the Emperor.
Yes. Because
the Emperor doesn't give a fuck. Ever.
I'd like to think that in that moment, like, people literally just die. Their optic nerves overloaded and they died on the spot.
I can
just
believe
looking
it.
at them.
I can believe it.
Because, again, these people lived in the core. Like, if you look at pictures of Konrad Curze or, like, any of the famous Night Lords, the ones who are from that planet, and just in general because of the way the gene seed works, all have weird eyes. Because those are the eyes that... Those are eyes that are, like, adapted for darkness, like a zero light condition.
They literally have D&D, like, low
they have
light
permanent
vision,
dark vision.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing about dark vision is everything is a flashlight becomes flashbang grenades.
Yes, exactly. And you are at a significant disadvantage for the rest of your life.
Yes. It's like Drow.
Yeah, just like Drow.
Yes.
So the Emperor basically walked up to Konrad Curze and was like, "Hello, my son. Your name is Konrad Curze, correct?" And then Konrad Curze said, "Nope.
I am the Night Haunter."
Yes.
He had... Right. The second he tried... When the Emperor finally showed up to the Night Haunter's giant murder palace, he looked at all of his brothers who were there. Fulgrim, Ferrus Manus, Lorgar, and of course Big E himself. And immediately... Oh yes, Dorn was also there. And... I don't know why that's so funny to me. He immediately tried to claw his eyes out. Immediately, he saw all of them and just... He saw all... He read ahead. He read all the Horus Heresy books in the fraction of a second, and then decided nope, and wanted to rip his giant... He used his giant monster claws to try and tear his eyes out, and the Emperor stopped him.
Yeah.
And then he looked at them and saw... Wait, Lexicanum says that as they approached, he had a horrible vision. But then as he looked at them, that's when he saw the visions. Does that mean that he saw, like, stuff that hasn't happened yet, or is that just a dramatic flair thing?
Both.
Okay, cool. So he just saw the most horrible thing he could ever see, beyond the fates of his brothers, beyond his own death. And that's when they did the Konrad Curze, be at peace, for I've arrived and intend to take you home.
Yes.
That is not my name, father. I am Night Hunter, and I know full well what you intend for me.
Yep.
And he was just like, cool. They were just like, yes, excellent, cool. As long as we have that understanding. Sick, let's go.
And then Konrad Curze would take the reins of the 8th Legion.
Yes, let's talk about them for a second, because I want to know what they were before this. Oh yeah, they were also prison dudes.
Yeah.
I was just like, I wonder what they were before this. I wonder if they were like they were set up in the same way as their primary. Nope, they're just night hunters. They're just night lords, but from Earth.
Yeah.
They were just kind of horrible. They were serial killers, basically.
They were not
stinking ancient prisons of Terra. So it's the grim dark future, and they just kind of built another prison. They built a quadruple decker prison on top of Rikers Island. And then the guys who live in old Rikers Island are the ones they chose to make night children.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's all of the stuff we get about before Konrad Curze shows up.
Yeah, there's never any really, really good information about them beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
Except for the Dusk Raiders, which became the Death Guard.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not as important.
Yeah, it's not as it's kind of meh.
As soon as the Night Haunter took control of the Night Lords, there was a undeniable downward spiral for them.
Yep.
So he encouraged that they decorate their armor with,
skin.
the skin of their enemies.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to point this out. This is going to become a point later when we start talking about famous people. Konrad hated his legion.
So much.
Angron hated everything. He didn't really hate his people any more or any less than he hated everyone else.
Yeah.
But Konrad Curze genuinely hated his legion because they reminded him of home.
Yes, which he also despised.
Yes.
So much so, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
So the Night Lords got a reputation for not being good dudes.
Yeah.
So much so that if there was the hinting that the Night Lords entered a system, any rebelling system would surrender immediately.
Because that wouldn't save them.
It wouldn't save them. And, okay, so let's talk about justification now.
Sure.
So, Konrad Curze thought these actions of eviscerating entire cities, skinning them alive,
literal
draping...
Yes.
Yes.
Of enacting all of the Cannibal Corpse lyrics were justified.
Right, exactly. Yes. So, he thought all of this was justified. All these brutal, heinous actions he committed were justified because if he could do this, if he could butcher and put to the sword an entire planet, it would save an entire sector, an entire subsector, an entire region of space. So by shedding blood now, you save it in the future.
Okay.
Now, okay, some of that I believe to a certain extent. I mean, sure, if you come at the enemy with such ferocity, such immense hatred and bloodshed that you convince the rest of the enemy to stand down, I mean, sure. I mean, you're indirectly ending the war early. But, you didn't have to murder the pets and then the children and then... you didn't have to go that far.
It's absolutely necessary to skin the heretics' hamsters. That is an absolutely necessary step. The hamsters could have been possessed by chaos.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Is Konrad just a commissar?
Kinda.
Where, I don't care how many of you have to die, as long as the point is made.
Many of you will die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Exactly. So
yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, there was very similar ideology shared between the Night Haunter and Imperial Commissars, but just political commissars in general.
Yeah.
So once Konrad Curze left on the Great Crusade, there was a bit of a whoopsie on Nostromo.
Yeah.
Instead of sending Konrad Curze like the
best and brightest, like any other Space Marine Legion,
the good soldiers, they sent him like genuine criminals, like literal, like nobody was
like,
good.
Just borderland psychos.
Yeah, exactly. Like rapists, thieves, murderers.
Yeah.
And
Various
they would eventually
Space Slav gangs.
Yes. They would eventually outnumber the actual like Terran-born recruits.
Right.
And the Night Lords got a reputation for literally just being
the worst.
Rapists, murderers, thieves, and power armor.
That is true, yes. Also, why were they not that before? Because they were recruited from Terra's worst quadruple-decker Rikers Island, basically.
I don't think anything was as bad as what they were, what they were to become.
Oh, good point, yes. So, the Night Lords, I want to mention this bit from here. It compares them to witch hunters. And also, they would when the Night Lords would show up to a system, they wouldn't just immediately cease all revolution. They would pay, if anyone had any debts to any Imperial anything, immediately those would get paid. Anything illegal was stopped, and they would immediately kill any mutants or heretics, proven or otherwise. Just immediately.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to be subject to an army of Ed Gein supermen.
Yup, because that's essentially what they were.
Yeah.
They were Ed Gein Jeffrey Dahmers who just murdered everything. So much so that the other Primarchs were very, very concerned. Yeah.
Except Fulgrim, because Fulgrim saw Konrad Curze making art and didn't really question where that leather jacket came from.
Yeah, I mean, so, kind of, sort of. Fulgrim was the only one who, like, genuinely cared about Curze.
That is true.
And, so much so that Curze kind of confided into his brother, like, Fulgrim, that he was having these really horrible visions. And, like, he saw his own death, he saw that the Primarchs would engage in civil war, and that the Emperor would die. And so Fulgrim told Dorn.
So, no, we spoke about Dorn already. Dorn being the sledgehammer of honesty. I like that metaphor. I'm going to use that metaphor as many times as I can. Immediately heard that and was like, cringe, and then tried to kill Konrad on the spot.
Yeah, so he confronted Curze, and then a couple hours later, somebody stumbled upon the accident of Dorn being bleeding and unconscious on the ground, and Konrad Curze was kind of in the corner crying.
And that is where the Night Lord theory starts to take shape.
Yes.
I mean, the Night Haunter theory.
The Night Haunter. That it is a separate personality
from Konrad Curze.
That takes over, and it's literally like the most explicit example of bipolar, like schizophrenia, that has ever existed, because it's not even like a mood swing or like an alternate personality. It's like another person takes over.
Yeah.
And there's a notable track in the life of Konrad Curze where this personality kind of just takes over.
Yeah.
And becomes like the dominant personality in Konrad Curze's head.
Yeah.
And it does not help with his mental stability.
Do tell. Fun fact. Yeah. Apparently Konrad Curze didn't really hate any of his brothers, except for Corax.
Yes, so they were exact opposites.
Yes.
They were the extension of stealth, of hit and run,
sneaky deaky stab you in the dark.
Sneaky beaky, we're going in, boys. Yeah. and they were exact opposites in ideology.
Except Korax had access to, like, hair care stuff.
Yeah, well, Korax showered sometimes.
Yes.
So, Corvus Corax, for those of you who don't know, we'll get to him eventually. He is a freedom fighter, essentially.
Yeah.
He is a rebel, a freedom fighter, and he wants to liberate as many people as possible.
Yeah, he was raised on a similar prison planet.
On Deliverance, which was literally a prison planet. Yeah. Prison mining planet.
Yeah.
And Curze kind of agreed, except...
His definition of liberation was much different.
A little different, yeah. Liberate in that you're going to your god now, sure.
You are free. You don't have to deal with any of the unpleasantries of life anymore. Yeah. You will live out the rest of your days as, like, this piece of upholstery for my giant armchair, in which I have mental episodes in.
Yup. So,
we need to talk. Though, we're gonna talk about Konrad Curze's arts and crafts projects.
Oh, we'll get there when we talk about Singwalsa in the end.
Yep.
So, over the course of the Great Crusade, the Night Haunter's personality became more and more prevalent. And the acts of the Night Haunters, of the Night Lords, got more and more depraved, and as time went on.
Yeah.
And there was a little thing that happened where Konrad Curze rolled up to Nostromo and just sort of blew it up. He just sort of exterminated his own planet.
And he had all of his dudes just watch.
Yeah.
He gave, like, this place is impure. It's like,
yeah, pretty much.
It has decayed in my absence. Are we going back to fix it, Grand Primarch? And he just pushes a button and then just...
Yep, poop. And then the planet goes bye-bye.
Yep. And then all of the dudes who were born on Nostromo, who had families on Nostromo, however attached to them they were, gone. Nothing.
Dust.
Cease.
So that was right at the tail end of the Great Crusade and into the start of the Horus Heresy.
Yep.
So, the Horus Heresy kicked off, and the Night Lords were kind of fucking around. They didn't do anything. They weren't part of the original Drop Site Massacre. Or, no, they were part of the Drop Site Massacre. They weren't part of the atrocity of Isfan 3.
Because they didn't have to do any kind of herd culling at all.
Right. Yeah, because they were all twisted, sick sons of bitches.
Konrad Curze just looked at all of his dudes and was just like, none of these guys ever cared about anything. They just want to kill people, and I will give them more people to kill, and they will follow me for that alone.
Pretty much.
This works.
That's pretty much it. So, the Drop Site Massacre would come up, and the Emperor would dispatch 7 legions to discipline Horus and the betraying legions, and the Night Lords were part of this accompanying force. They would set up on the Salamander flank of the Drop Site Massacre, of the Isfan 5 assault, and as soon as that salutary red flare went up, the Night Lords would open fire on their Salamander brethren.
Yep.
And
they kidnapped Vulcan.
So Vulcan was sort of taken from the battlefield, and everybody was like, hey, where does fucking Vulcan go? And Konrad Curze is just whistling, walking away, like, oh, I don't know, guys, that's kind of weird, yeah.
It's like, I don't know, but whatever. It's Vulcan, I don't know, he could be doing anything.
Anyway, I gotta go now, bye.
And then we hard cut to Vulcan inside of this horrible infinite nightmare maze that Perturabo made.
Yeah.
Where Curze wanted to break Vulcan's mind. Because he hated Vulcan, because Vulcan cared about people.
And Curze did not.
Yes.
But it is, or as I would say, right before the Drop Site Massacre, we get the greatest fucking quote to ever exist, to ever come out of Warhammer 40,000.
All right.
Yago Sevatar, the first captain of the Night Lords, is in like this big conference room all the reinforcing legions are having, and he looks at Argel Tal, who is a member of the Word Bearers Legion, and he goes, "Death to the false emperor." And then we hear a, "All right, he said the thing! He said the thing!"
Now, was this in the room or is this us outside? Because I can absolutely, he said that to one of Lorgar's dudes.
Yeah,
so I'm not surprised that Lorgar immediately just brilliant. That will make that a whole thing. Excellent, perfect. Like, that's everything I ever wanted you to say.
Yep.
Just Lorgar just starts crying.
It's literally the scene of Shia LaBeouf in the movie theater clapping at his own movies.
Yes.
But then the Horus Heresy would kick off in earnest,
yes.
And the Night Lords would rain terror across the galaxy. Specifically, they would really bother the Dark Angels.
Yes. No, let's talk about the Thramas campaign first.
The Thramas Crusade.
Yeah.
But like Anisia said, the
Ultramarines of Macragge. Curze personally shows up on Macragge just to mess with Guilliman.
Yeah,
and during this fight, I understand you want to go into lore detail, but there's one very critical point I want to mention. Guilliman's mom just chews him out. And he doesn't immediately try and, like, tear her head off. He just kind of goes away.
Yep.
She just yells at him.
I think it's kind of funny.
It's just like, for the first time ever, he's getting chastised by, like, something remotely resembling a parental figure, and he has, like, the Batman moment of, like, you just stare, just like, I've never had a mom before. Like, if your mother were here, she'd be ashamed of you. I don't have parents. Well, I'm sure if you did, it's like, I've never had a mom before. And he just runs away and cries.
Yeah, pretty much. So the Thramas Crusade happened. Curze kind of leads a good portion of his legion against the Dark Angels. Over the course of which the Night Lords kind of lose and run away.
Yeah.
But not before Konrad Curze and his Atramentar, the personal bodyguard of the Primarch, teleport aboard Lionel Johnston's personal flagship and just sort of kill shit there. Yes. A lot of shit. Yes. And they get stranded. Curze is the only one who survives.
Is this the point that we talked about back in the Dark Angels episode? Yep. Where only these two guys just playing hide and seek with giant person-sized knives?
Yes, for months.
Months.
So they're inside the Ruin Storm at this point, and they're hunting each other in, like, the bowels of this ship, like, for months. And, like, it's literally, like, the Lion was standing still for, like, 3 days straight so that the Curze would, like, slink past him. The Lion would jump out, Curze would see it in his mind before it happened, dunk out of the way, and then run down a corridor, and then it would be that for literally months.
Okay. I just want to point out I misquoted the thing about Konrad Curze running away because Tasha Yuten yells at him. Tasha Yuten stalled for time, and then Vulcan, who had escaped the horrible nightmare maze, came back and beat his ass all across Macragge.
Yes,
and he did not foresee Vulcan showing up.
Right, and because there was a lot going on there.
Yes, you can't listen to your space anxiety when you got like 16 different things going on.
Yeah, so we're getting there.
Yeah.
So the Konrad Curze would be aboard this flagship for months as the Dark Angels kind of pull up to Macragge, and so fun fact, the Lion didn't know if Guilliman was gonna betray the Emperor or not, and Guilliman didn't know if the Lion was gonna betray the Emperor or not, because Guilliman had his own little empire and the Lion wanted to be War Master, so they both kind of had reasonable suspicion on each other. So much so that before the Lion went down to the surface of Macragge to kind of meet with his brother, he ordered all battle companies of the Dark Angels to be battle ready. To be in drop pods ready to go. And, like, to take this planet from the Ultramarines by force. And he didn't give the order to, like, drop assault or anything.
But they were, like, ready.
They were ready. And Konrad Curze saw this opportunity and manually ejected all the drop pods in the ship before getting in one and landing on the surface. So all of a sudden, Gilliman and the Lion are having this nice conversation about like the future of the Emperor or whatever, and all these drop pods come out of the Lion's flagship with battle companies in them, like ready to go. And he eventually communicates to Gilliman that this was not actually me, and he orders all the Dark Angel squads to kind of like calm the fuck down. But that's how Curze got to the surface of the planet.
Wow.
And previous to this, Vulcan had escaped the Nightmare Maze on the Nightfall, Konrad Curze's ship, because Konrad Curze put Vulcan's hammer at the center of this maze.
Yes.
And he didn't really know that the hammer was also a teleportation device. And Vulcan used it to kind of teleport to the aerial surface of Macragge into the lower atmosphere, where he then plummeted
on his
through
own
the lower atmosphere
and just
on his own
landed.
and just landed in the planet. He died from this, obviously.
Yes, but he got better.
He got better, though. But he kind of lost his mind and was then let loose on the surface of Macragge trying to hunt down Konrad Curze.
I mean, we can assume that he plummeted down head first.
Yeah.
Just T-posing down head first into re-entering the atmosphere, and he hit the ground in that exact position. But he got better. We can assume that like a couple gears would be knocked loose, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And he would kind of forget who he was and what he was doing, but he knew that he must kill Konrad.
Yes.
And that's where we kind of cut to him beating the shit of Konrad Curze over the course of like a couple days into a forest.
Yes. Literally just non-stop, where, walking to a forest.
Pretty much. Eventually, Vulcan would kind of stop, and Curze would then face the Lion and Gilliman at the same time.
Yes.
He would kind of leave. He would separate the two because he was actually really fucking smart. And he basically 1v1 the Lion, and the Lion kind of won because the Lion is amazing and deserves everything.
Yes.
But the fight would continue, and Konrad Curze would eventually get the shit kicked out of him, and he would make a daring escape off the planet.
No.
And he would...
I just want to point out, it mentions John Grammaticus. John Grammaticus is what helps Curze escape.
Yes, that's right.
Do we want to talk about John Grammaticus?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, I know nothing about John Grammaticus. Let me open up the wiki article. He was a psyker.
Okay, well...
That's all I know.
John Grammaticus was a very special individual. So John Grammaticus was a perpetual.
Yes.
Who was in the service at this time of an organization called the Cabal.
Yes.
And the Cabal was made up of different species. Basically, they're like the White Lotus in Avatar: The Last Airbender,
right? Where
they were always kind of working in the background to try to kill chaos,
right?
To try to stop chaos from consuming everything, and they're the ones who convince Altharius and Omegon to join with Horus to save everybody, sort of at the end.
Right.
So John Grammaticus was there. He was sent to Macragge to kill Vulcan. I forget the details, but he was sent to Macragge to kill a Primarch.
Yes.
One of the Primarchs.
Yes.
I think.
I'm scrolling through stuff. It doesn't really mention anything.
Yeah, no, it's cool. That's all you need to know. John Grammaticus eventually...
Oh, no, he was supposed to assassinate Vulcan.
Yes.
For some reason.
He basically had like a god-killing weapon, and he used it to stab Curze in the middle of a fight between Vulcan and Curze, I believe.
Yes.
And Curze like reeled from that, and it's how the fight kind of ended, I think.
Yes. Oh, never mind, that's someone else. Because someone wanted to kill Lorgar.
Yes, there was a word bearer who did not like the way Lorgar was leading the Legion. Yeah, he didn't like the way Lorgar was leading the Legion, and he was going to kill his own Primarch.
Yes.
Yeah,
which is lame, because then Korvax doesn't get to kill him.
Yeah, well, he hasn't killed him yet, but yes.
Yes.
But yes, that's the thread.
Yes. Aside over, we return back to... the Night Lords, and so at this point, oh wait, no, this is way back. This is in the future. I messed up. So at this point, Konrad is on a ship. I forgot which. Hold on, let me scroll back up. He's on the. I'm trying to find the point where he goes to where he's fighting with Sanguinius.
Oh, okay. So that's on Macragge.
Yeah. Okay. That's still on Macragge.
Yes.
So he also.
So Sanguinius. So fun fact: Sanguinius was named the Emperor of the Imperium Secundus. It's a long story. We'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. We talked about it with Lionel Johnson, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sanguinius was named the Emperor, and Konrad Curze appears in the throne room while he's on this terror campaign on Macragge.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a conversation with his brother, and they fight for a couple minutes, but the fight would literally last forever because they could both anticipate each other's movements. But they have a conversation, and is that where you were getting at?
Yeah, the conversation where they find out that where he has, for the first time, Konrad Curze talks to someone else who has powers of precognition, and then we find out that the main debilitating thing isn't just Konrad Curze's powers, it's the way he views the world.
Yes.
Which is that everything is predestined, everything is absolute, there's nothing you can do to change it. Because Konrad Curze views multiple futures at the same time, it's just that he tends to believe in the worst one.
Yep.
Where Sanguinius has similar powers, except Sanguinius believes that, we as humans we're supposed to be masters of our own destiny. The visions are guidelines, you can make those visions not happen. And then he fights with Konrad. And then Sanguinius basically finds out through the power of, Sanguinius Hawkboy Mary Sudum, that if he were to fight Konrad Curze, do some things to convince Konrad Curze that the visions aren't fully reality, he would become worse than Konrad is, and so he decides to not do that.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so they had a very good book. I think it's it's in the Imperium Secundus arc, obviously. I forget the exact book it's in. Yeah, but it's a good scene if you haven't read the
it is a very good scene.
So moving on, the Night Lords would continue on to conduct this terror campaign. Konrad Curze wouldn't really ever reestablish the Legion. It was very fractured at this point.
Right.
And he just didn't really give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
He knew his death was coming.
Yep.
And his death eventually would come on the planet of Segwalsa.
Yes.
I'm
not going to try and pronounce that.
I'm pretty sure it's Segwalsa.
Yeah, it's Segwalsa.
So there is a fortress made out of almost entirely human skin, from what I understand.
The Screaming Gallery.
Yes.
Oh, right. It's time to talk about art projects. The Screaming Gallery is alive.
Yeah.
The Screaming
Go
Gallery...
ahead. Take it away, Penny.
The Screaming Gallery is made out of still living, but horribly flayed people that have been turned into various furniture, that are kept alive through horrible chaos, nonsense, and heretical machines, and all that jazz. And this place is... Everyone who is in this giant building is in constant pain. The upholstery screams at you. The throw pillows were made of people. That wonderful table that you're using that's made of coaster, that you don't use a coaster on, surprise, that's like 30 orphans.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And in this temple,
up.
in this fortress, at one point, there was actually a full effigy to the Emperor, made entirely of still living people that were subjected to the cruelest fate of all, and that is listen to Konrad Curze monologue to himself about how unjust his lot in life was.
Yup, for fucking ever.
For, I believe, a month.
Yeah. And he just slowly went more and more insane while he was here.
Yep. He hated his legion at this point. They were all fractured.
He despised them.
Except for, one dude.
His only friend was the first Captain Sevatar.
Yep. And it was just like, I hate you the least.
Yeah.
Oh, and also because Sevatar would be the only one to try and avenge him.
Yes, exactly. So, the way back in the day, Konrad Curze foresaw his own death at the hands of the Emperor.
Right.
Well,
Technically,
he wasn't exactly right.
Yeah.
So, his death would come at the... Oh, I just broke a pen. His death would come at the hands of a Calidus assassin named M. Shen.
Yes.
Who was sort of just allowed to infiltrate this palace.
Yeah. He was just like, okay, guys, tonight is the night. I'm going to be killed. Someone's going to try and enter my room. That's absolutely the assassin. Don't do anything. And they're all just like, sure, whatever, we don't care.
And
he's like, I hate all of you.
Upon the entrance to M. Shen into the Night Haunter's chambers, he calls out to this assassin, who I would imagine is quite startled at the fact that Curze knows where they are.
Yes.
But he says out loud, "Your presence does not surprise me, assassin. I have known of you ever since your craft entered the eastern fringes. Why did I not have you killed? Because your mission and the act you are about to commit proves the truth of all I have ever said or done. I merely punish those who have wronged, just as your false emperor now seeks to punish me. Death is nothing compared to vindication."
That is a cool line. Also, there's an incident way back before the Horus Heresy happens, where Konrad has a a particularly horrible... I'm trying to find the part where it says... the Horus Heresy. It's right before the Horus Heresy, where he had... Oh, that's in Konrad's page. I closed Konrad's page for some reason. Where basically, I'll read the Lexicanum entry in a minute, but it says that during a particularly horrible vision, he kills just someone there who's there taking notes.
Yes.
And then that is the thing that's one of the things that show that he feel that that's what he feels like he needs to be punished for. I'm trying to find it because it mentions a bunch of stuff, because there's a whole lot of stuff to go through. Blah blah. Oh wait, the trial. There was a trial for him. We want to talk about the trial?
Go ahead, take it.
All right. So he was put on trial before Sanguinius, and this is where they had one of those talks. Well,
yes,
they had
so this
talk.
was after. This was after he was incapacitated by John Grammaticus.
Yes. So Sanguinius. So Konrad Curze, among other. So Konrad Curze he split. So he played head games with them, where he told Guilliman about how Lion put all his dudes in drop pods and said, "Be ready in case he tries something." And then the Lion was like, "I'm going to kill you for accusing me of doing wrong. How dare you?" And Sanguinius talked him out of it, and then Guilliman just straight up broke the Lion's sword.
Yes, he broke the Lion's sword.
Yes. And so I mentioned this because Konrad Curze refers to Guilliman as an avenging bean counter, and that is my favorite.
That's the greatest
my favorite line.
I have ever heard in my life.
He calls Guilliman the avenging bean counter, and that's exclusively why I wanted to mention this.
So Guilliman is often referred to as the avenging son.
Yes.
He avenges himself onto the enemies of the Emperor.
Yes.
So when Curze calls him the avenging bean counter, it is literally the greatest fucking insult that has ever existed ever.
He just calls him a nerd.
Yeah, that is amazing.
They're like, Konrad Curze, you are here for various notable war crimes, of which there are so many counts, we don't have time to list them all. And he's like, listen here, you fucking nerd. I'm trying to find the point where Vulcan, okay, here it is. Relations with Vulcan were even more strained, where the Primarch nearly fighting Curze over the fate of Karaton. Sometime after, Curze had a particularly violent vision where he saw the future monstrosity he was destined to become. Curze was horrified by this future, and when snapped out of his trance, he realized he had murdered one of his archivists. This was the first known person Curze killed whom he considered innocent, and it was at this moment that he realized that he himself now deserved punishment.
Yes.
So this right here is the turning point. Could be considered the big turning point.
Right.
Because prior to this, he's killed millions, thousands of people with his own hands, millions of people at the hands of artillery or at the hands of his men, all of whom he considered to be wrong in some way. Because in the grimdark world where everything is gray, Curze viewed everything as black and white, which is the people who are good and the people who need to die.
Yeah.
And the second he violates his laws, that's where he starts to blue screen. And this could be the moment that kind of pushes him off his downward spiral.
Yep.
Well, this and also when Dorn finds out that he's having a nightmare. Oh, yes. Fulgrim, so the incident that causes Dorn to snap is when Fulgrim tells Dorn that Konrad had a vision of everyone fighting everyone else. Yeah. He had a vision of civil war. And then Dorn got mad. How dare you accuse... They are loyal to the Emperor just like we are. How could you even say this? And then he was berating Konrad, and he probably smacked Konrad up. And then Konrad snapped, tried to kill Dorn, left, and blew up Nostromo in the span of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So those are those gaps. So if there are gaps in the story, that's what we missed.
Yeah, that's what I missed.
Yeah.
So his signature weapons were obviously the
giant fuck-off Wolverine claws.
They would get. Can you guess what they're called without looking at anything?
The Ruin Haunters?
No, they were called Mercy and Forgiveness. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, do not worry. You have in fact paid your tithe, so you shall be shown mercy.
And
thank
forgiveness.
you. This is mercy.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about notable Night Lords now.
Let's start off with Jago Sevitarian.
Iago Sevatar.
Yes.
Yeah, so just called Sevatar, sure.
Sevatar, okay.
He was the coolest dude. He was the only one who cared about the Legion entirety.
Yes.
He was the one fighting to get the Nightfall after Konrad Curze died so that he can preserve the Legion.
Right. And he was Konrad Curze's only friend.
Only friend. He was the only good
That, of course, is vague.
Yes, exactly.
Because Konrad Curze hated everyone.
Yeah.
And he hated... It's more like... It was like, I hate you the least, Jago. And he was like, Thank you, Primarch. That is high praise. It's like, of course it is, you blithering idiot.
Yeah.
It's just that's how their friendship was.
There was another dude by the name of I can't remember. He was called the Painted Duke.
I'm going to scroll down through. Is this Heresy or Post?
Heresy.
Okay. Painted Duke, the Bloodless.
His name was very Russian.
I don't, Alistor Rusha, no.
Scrivok. Jendor Scrivok.
Yes,
that's his
the
name.
Painted Count.
Painted Count, I was close. I promise I didn't look anything up.
He was a demon prince of the Night Lord's Legion.
So, fun fact, he was a bitch. He was just a prissy little bitch.
Uh-huh.
And he had a demon sword that he found.
Right.
And the demon sword gave him immense powers, and he thought that he could challenge Raldoron, one of the most proficient blood angels to ever live.
Right.
And Raldoron kicked the absolute shit out of Jendor Scrivok. And because Scrivok thought, he's like, oh, I got a demon sword, I'll win this no problem. And then the demon sword was like, you fucking what? Okay. And the demon sword stopped working. So Scrivok was pretty much flailing around for 15 minutes while Raldoron just gave him like left hook, and just kept punching him and slashing at him, and literally kicked him over a wall, over the Imperial Fortress, one of the first walls. And he was laying bloody in a heap on the ground when the demon who possessed his sword basically just swallowed him into the warp and kept him there for 10,000 years. The Night Hunters were pretty fragmented. There weren't too many of note.
I just want to point out, a lot of these dudes, like, the Painted Count, or, like, you notice in a lot of the details about the Night Haunters and the way they're organized like prison, like gangs.
Yes.
Like a Sevatar has the Night Lords have, aside from the various flayed skin tapestries they wear, they also have little details, like in the same way like a prison gang will have different tattoos identifying who you are.
Right.
Sevatar had red hands, which was a thing that was tattooed on him that he put on his armor, which is to show that he was a traitor or that he failed.
Yeah, because his Primarch did.
Yeah, because Curze died on his watch, and he felt bad about it.
Yeah.
And tradition said...
Fun fact about Sevatar, he's the one who started the fucking bat ears thing.
Really?
So, that was Sevatar.
Really?
Yeah.
Of course it was.
And some Night Lords made fun of him for it.
You mean to tell me that the Night Lords made all the jokes about you're gonna try to fly with those things?
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Like, I wonder with those things, can you hear the enemy coming first? Like, shut up, it's gonna be cool, you guys, I swear. Shut up, leave me alone.
Scribok literally made a comment like, there's fucking Sevatar and his stupid fucking bat ears.
And now, that's just what the Night Lords have by default.
Yep.
Because Sevatar was the best one.
He was pretty fucking cool.
Uh-huh.
The signature weapon of the Night Lords, fun fact, was basically like a pole like a pole saw.
Oh.
Like you know how there's like chain axes and chain swords?
Yeah, it was like a polearm chainsaw.
Yeah, like a spear with a chainsaw at the tip of it. And yeah, that's kind of frightening, not gonna lie.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like, imagine, like, I wonder if that exists for the sole purpose of, like, somebody making a model of just, like, a Night Lord with, like, a giant 6-person long people kebab.
Yeah, pretty much, yep. It's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah. I feel like as long as we're doing important dudes, I want to talk about, Malkarian, one of the coolest characters.
Oh, the War Sage?
Yes. One of my favorite dudes. Because in the Night Lord's book, which I haven't finished yet, so Malkarian killed the Sword Master Captain of the White Scars, a Paladin of the Imperial Fist, and Raguel, the Captain of the Blood Angels, in a single day.
Yup.
But then immediately after that, he was killed.
Monster.
He was killed, and they put him in his magical death coffin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, on his giant robot sarcophagus, there's a picture of him curb stomping, like, he's curb stomping a Blood Angel's helmet and then holding the other two helmets in his hands.
That's fucking amazing.
It is, yeah, that's why I love this dude. Like, he wasn't in the book for that long, because in the Night Lord's book, he dies, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, as the Dreadnought.
Yeah, he's been around.
Yeah, he's not around for
since
long.
The fucking heresy.
But when he is around, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Also, as long as we're here, Talos. Valkyron. The man who was too edgy for chaos.
Yes.
He was the one who killed M. Shen.
Yes, as a redeeming thing,
yeah.
I think.
He, Sevatar died, and so he went down. He's the one who killed M. Shen, even though, technically this disobeys Konrad's last orders. But because Konrad was so edgy and awesome, he did it anyway.
Yeah.
And so that was when he became the Soul. That's why he was the Soul Hunter. Konrad gave him the nickname of Soul Hunter.
And that's the name of the book. Look at that.
Yeah. One soul. You will... I gotta read this in the voice. Prepare your ears.
One soul. You will hunt one shining soul, while all others turn their backs on vengeance.
And that's the extent of Talos beyond the books.
Yep.
He goes, he fights the Exalted, a bunch of stuff happens. You know, whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's my
other
list.
than that, there's not much,
Okay. What's a Hold on. Are these the the Chiroptera?
Yeah, that's... The Chiroptera were the main, captains, I think.
Ah. So they're just leaning really hard into the bat thing.
Yes, very, very hard.
We joke about the Batman thing, but Konrad Curze literally had the Avenged Sevenfold band logo on his chest.
Yeah.
And then Iago, Savitar with his e-girl bat headphones. And then then from there, I want to mention this because I feel like no one talks about this part of the Night Lords. They literally scream as a weapon.
Yes.
They're all have the same kind of sonic weapon as Eidolon, where they scream at stuff and it stops working and people die.
Yeah.
It's just a thing that all of their suits come with.
Yeah, they amplify Vox output.
Yes.
And they use it, and they kind of concentrate.
Yeah, they yell at stuff, and then stuff dies.
Yup.
All right. So blah blah blah. Genes. Okay. So some of the Night Lords, because of Konrad, all have Konrad Curze's anxiety flashback powers.
Some of them. Few.
Some of them. Not a lot of them, but the most notable one being Soul Hunter.
Yes.
Who?
Yeah. Very very little warp manipulation. This was a very good example of Chaos Space Marines who were not chaotic in nature. I mean, certainly some of them were, but they weren't like fanatical zealots. They were chaos undivided in the way that Perturabo was, but not even to that extent because Curze did not ascend.
Curze didn't believe in chaos. Like Perturabo believed in chaos as a tool. Curze doesn't care.
He just doesn't give a fuck, and he's not alive long enough to give a fuck.
Yeah. They are misotheists, where they don't really believe in gods as a whole. Some of them do. Some of them get absolutely ridiculous with it.
Right.
A lot of them don't. Most of them don't, because chaos doesn't really give them what they want a lot of the time. Like Talos,
they can do it on their own.
Yeah, because Talos in particular, I always kind of found funny, where he has a vision where all 4 of the chaos gods show up to him, and he's just like, fuck y'all, you're not cool enough.
I don't give a fuck.
He's like, you don't understand. And like Linkin Park slowly starts playing in the background. I'm too edgy for chaos. Yep. It's very, very funny. If there was like a chaos god of terror, that would work. Yes. Because none of the chaos gods really fit into the philosophy of the Night Lords. Right. Which is just kind of death metal sadism.
So they made their own.
Yeah.
Konrad Curze.
The chaos god of death metal and angst.
Yep. And I think that's just about it.
Yep. Closing thoughts?
Konrad Curze was a really sick and twisted individual who suffered from very, very significant mental illness. Uh-huh. And the fact that he was put in charge of a bunch of also clinically insane individuals did not help his mental state. Mm-hmm. He is a tragic villain, and, Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. I just want to point out, before I give my final thoughts, in the future, they just straight up kidnap babies.
Yes.
Which is funny. Like, it's the continuation of Konrad Curze's legend. Eat up, little Timmy, or the Night Lords will come, and they'll take you away, and then they'll subject you to horrible, terrible things, and then they'll make you one of them, and then you'll have to kidnap other little children.
Yep, and then the cycle continues of orphaned children.
Yes. We've mentioned a lot of dead kids in this episode.
We're gonna stop talking about dead kids now.
Okay, cool. Final thoughts from me. The Night Lord, I like my paladin, the paladin analogy that we've been going through. In that vein, these are kind of paladins of evil.
Yes.
They're
Death Knights.
Yeah, the Chaos Gods were, they're paladins of a Chaos God, or Lorgar's paladin is Lorgar and the Wordbearers are paladin, just straight up paladins of chaos as a whole. These guys are paladins of murder hoboing. Yep. There is no god to pray to. There is only violence for violence's sake. Yep. And the Night Lords they started out horrible, and then due to corruption, the corruption that was very prevalent in the worlds which they were from, they became progressively more horrible.
Yeah, they just didn't get better.
Yeah. Also, if all the other Primarchs are representative of of this element of the Emperor, what is Konrad?
Justice.
Good point. Yeah, he's the Emperor's justice. It's
Konrad is justice.
Brutal,
undeniably, uninterpreted justice.
Yep. Just by the book, lawful evil.
Yep. And just remember, kids, death is nothing compared to vindication.
And remember, eat your vegetables, or the Night
Konrad
Haunter will
Curze.
come and get you.
He will rip out your spine. Okay, with that, next time I think it's Ferris Manus, number 10.
Oh man, that was gonna be even shorter than this one.
Well, this was one of the longer episodes we've ever had, to be completely honest.
That's fair, yeah.
Yeah. Ferris Manus is number...
7.
Tell me. Nope, 7 was Thorn. Ferris Manus.
9.
Number...
Why can't I do math?
10. 10.
Excellent, thank you. Why can't I need to just have a list of these dudes?
I do somewhere, I just don't remember where I keep it.
Okay.
Okay, with that,
Join us whenever we upload again.
it'll be sometime probably.
We can't say next week at this point.
Guess it's not gonna be next week. Okay, everybody, have a good day, night, drive to work, drive home, wherever you listen from, and we'll see you next time.
Ave Imperator.
Ave Imperator.